In this video, I want to talk about an amp that has repeatedly blown my mind, whether it's through its sweet punchy cleans, its killer rhythm crunch, or its singing lead tones. This amp is, well, it's ridiculously great. Hi, I'm Steve. Welcome to my studio. If you've watched even a few of my videos, then you can probably tell that I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Marshall guy. For the last couple decades at least, my definition of a great rock guitar tone has included, in some way, shape, or form, a Marshall amp. Lately, though, I've been spending some time with some other amps. You saw my video a couple weeks ago about my Splon Quick Rod. I've also been playing a good bit on my Mesa Boogie triple rectifier. But this video is not about the triple rectifier. It's not even about metal tones. Well, not entirely. Of course, I'm talking about the Mark VII. For nearly as long as Mesa Boogie has been in existence, the Mark series has been their flagship amp. Over the years, Mesa Boogie founder and lead designer Randall Smith has been innovating new features and new ways of doing things, and most of these have found their way into the Mark series of amps. The Mark VII takes all the innovation and goodness of the Mark line and moves it forward with some new features, including the Cab Clone IR, which is assignable on a per-channel basis, which means each channel can have a different speaker IR if I want. A couple new modes, the Mark IIB, which you just heard a few seconds ago, and the gained-up Mark VII, which is coming up. Also included is Mesa Boogie's multi-watt feature. The Mark VII lets you switch between 25, 45, and 90 watts, also on a per-channel basis. So not only can you dial back the power for smaller venues, you can also dial back the wattage to get into a more saturated power section on one channel while pushing the full 90 watts for a crushing rock tone on another. This feature is also available in my triple rectifier, albeit at 50 and 150 watts, but I'm finding it more useful on my Mark VII. I guess because on the rectifier, I'm usually chugging along with a pretty massive low end, and that benefits from those extra watts. Anyhow, back to the Mark VII. Now, this has turned out to be Randall Smith's final amp design for Mesa Boogie, as he and the company parted ways earlier last year. And intentional or not, he sure made one hell of an amp for his Boogie Swan song. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about what I call the back panel features, because while that stuff's important, at the end of the day, it's all about tone, and in that department, this amp more than delivers. Also, I should note, because I'll probably forget to say anything later, but I usually use the graphic EQ on my clean and crunchy rhythm stuff, and I turn it off for my lead stuff. So if I fail to mention it, this little light right next to the EQ lets you know whether it's on or off. Now, one thing that Mesa Boogie's always been really good at is their clean sounds. Pristine, fat, beautiful are all words that I've heard used to describe Boogie's cleans. In the Mark VII, there are two modes of clean. There's clean, which is just a sweet crystal clean sound, and there's fat, which, well, fattens things up in the lower mids. Let's take a listen. Now, what I notice is this. In clean mode, when I bring up the bass control, the lower bass frequencies are coming up. If I switch to fat mode, some low mids are added, and then when I bring up the bass control, those lower mids are also increasing more. Now, if I want something clean and spanky and really punchy, then I might switch over to the clean mode and bring up the bass control. That way, the low end is pronounced, but not at all woolly. You might have noticed that there's a fat and a crunch mode on both channels 1 and 2. These are the same on either channel, but having them available on both channels just makes the amp that much more flexible. Over the last decade or two, I've set up my sound so that I have a lighter gain sound that I could use for something more bluesy, but still having some drive. With this kind of sound, I can go back to 4th or 5th position here, back off on the volume, and it cleans up a little bit, but it's still got plenty of grit. And then I also have a heavier crunch sound for more rockin' material. Think of it kind of like the difference between a cranked Fender Deluxe and a Marshall. So with crunch mode being included on both channel 1 and 2, setting that up on the Mark VII is easy. Now in crunch mode, I can get quite a bit of drive going, enough that this is where I've been leaving it for a nice, fat, crunchy rock sound. And virtually all the gain is usable, unlike some amps where once you get past, say, 2 o'clock, it just gets kind of flubby and nasty. And if I want to go in a more metal direction, I just switch over to Mark VII mode, which is a gained up crunch mode, kind of getting us over into rectifier territory. That's just a killer crunch. I think I could live there. We've already hit on a ton of great sounds. We haven't even gotten to channel 3 yet, so let's go. Over here on channel 3, things get really interesting. The 3 modes are actually based on 3 previous Mark series amps, and they sound great. The first one is Mark IIB mode, which is based on the old Mark IIB. Duh. Now, while this mode is capable of some pretty chunky tones, I really like this one, though, for a more in-your-face, bluesy kind of sound. Dirty and sweet. Next up is 2C mode. Now, if you've been paying any attention in the guitar world over the last several months, you've probably seen that Mesa Boogie recently reissued the Mark IIc Plus. That's the amp that pretty much shot the Mesa Boogie name up into the stratosphere. Hearing Hetfield's tone on the Master of Puppets record was my initiation into the world of Mesa Boogie, and as I understand it, there's a Mark IIc Plus in there somewhere. On the Mark VII, they've included a Mark IIc Plus mode that, according to everything I've heard, seen, and read, including from Randall Smith himself, who designed both amps, this pretty much nails that sound dead on. Let's take a listen. Man, that brings back some memories. And finally, we've got Mark IV mode, based on the monstrously successful Mark IV. Introduced in 1990, there was an A version and a B version. I'm not sure which one this is based on, but the Mark IV was in production for nearly 20 years until Mesa Boogie retired it in favor of the Mark V. I noticed a more pronounced mid-range in Mark IV mode, and it pretty much nails the kind of lead sound that I typically go for. This mode made me think of naming this video More Marshall than Marshall, but then I got to thinking, are my lead tones more Marshall, or have I been trying to do a boogie thing all these years? Anyhow, here's how it sounds. remiss if I didn't mention what to me is one of the greatest features of these amps, and that's their simulclass power section. Now, simulclass is a term that I'd seen thrown around for years, decades even, in their advertisements, but I never really knew what it meant until fairly recently. In a nutshell, it's like this. The amp has 4 power tubes. In a simulclass design, 2 of the tubes operate in Class A mode, and 2 of them operate in Class AB mode. Now, the various differences between Class A and Class AB are way beyond the scope of this video. But in guitar speak, what that means is it results in a more smooth and touch-sensitive sound and feel. Now, I've read that this can result in less punchiness, but to me, this amp sounds plenty punchy, and the touch sensitivity is off the charts fantastic. I could go on and on. This amp is so much fun to play. Now, tone-wise, regardless of what amp I plug into, I'm going to gravitate kind of towards my own type of sound. And I think most guitar players are the same way. We twist knobs until it sounds right to us. What I am finding, though, is, at least to some extent, when I'm just fooling around playing, I'm playing different things. Different kinds of riffs and licks are just kind of coming out naturally. And I attribute this to the difference in feel from the Marshalls and other amps that I'm more accustomed to. I don't think either is better or worse. I think using both is great. As a guitarist, anything that helps us discover new sounds, tones, or vibes is always welcome. So there's a little look at Mesa Boogie's flagship amp from the perspective of a Marshall user. What do you think? Did I hit all the bullet points or did I miss some things? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.